Like I was watching some video and I was reading the comments. I think it was about a browser, and the dude in the comments said, like, watching this video, I find it hard to believe that going, like, when you install a browser, going to the settings and options isn't the first thing people do. And I left a comment responding to the guy, and I was like, I used to get paid to work on computers, right? Like, I'm A plus certified. I got certified in 2009 before they changed it to a yearly retest. So I'm grandfathered into certified for life, they call it. Now, it never mattered for me because most of the work I got was before I even had that. But I was getting paid to work on computers as a teenager, right? Like cash, right? Under the table, so to speak. And it was a pretty good gig, right? Over 20 years ago, making essentially $100 an hour, you know, because it might be, $50, but it took 30 minutes, right? So essentially $100 an hour, but sometimes like literally $100 for a job or whatever at the time was pretty good. But, I've seen a lot of shit. And that's what I told this guy. I used to get paid to work on computers, and you and me, when we install a program, the first thing we do is we go to the options and check all the settings, right? Like Firefox, disable telemetry and blah, blah, blah. Yeah, that's a rarity. Almost nobody does that. Almost nobody. Same thing with ad blockers. Almost nobody uses an ad blocker. And I don't know how they fucking put up with it. There's been very few points in my life. Like 2019 at a point, I essentially had no other choice. I was limited to my phone. I could use a browser with ad blocker, but it took too much battery. The hotel I was living at, the only port I could plug it in to charged extremely slow. To the point to where basically most of the time it was at the same level all the time. Like plugging in just stopped it from getting lower, right? Even my power brick, the battery bank, it would take forever to charge that piece of shit. They probably did that on purpose, is my guess, to try to limit your electricity usage. But so, basically having everything else closed out, and then just running the YouTube app, for example. That's something I did for quite a while in 2019. But most individuals, even though they have the ability to do something else, they don't. They deal with the ads, right? Like dudes I've been with, even watching them look at something on their phone, or like if we're watching something together and it's their phone or their computer or whatever, and they just are just fine with just sitting there waiting for the fucking ads, and I'm like going crazy. I'm like, holy fuck. So it's funny that so many things want to block ads, block people who use ad blockers. I mean, because dude, almost nobody does that, and they're not losing money anyway. That's money they don't even deserve, right? And that's what I hate about a lot of these apps. Like I mentioned, that fucking Wi-Fi bridging app or whatever it's called. 10 years ago, there was two types that I remembered, like two types. I mean, I'm sure there was ad stuff back then too, but the main shit was either it was payware, right? Like you pay to use it, or free meant free, as in no ads either. I don't know, maybe some bullshit like OkCupid had ads. I don't know. Tinder didn't have ads even, right? And that's something I noticed over time, real early on with dating apps and all that. Well, just software in general, on an Android at least, no ads if it was a free program. Probably because it's a version of Linux essentially, and it started off as sort of like a power user type of OS. Google used to pretend they cared about, open source and this and that. And, of course, you see what they do over time. But something I noticed was that, like, most stuff that was free, it was literally free. If you see free with ads, that means it's not free. You paid by watching ads. Now, if you try to look up anyone else saying this online, of course, everyone has a problem with them saying that. Oh, well, you expect these YouTubers to make content for free? And it's like, I've done it for 15 fucking years. I've done thousands of hours of video. Go ask the Chomo pillars, because they fucking, probably got a whole catalog of my shit, because I've always actually advocated motherfuckers downloading my shit. Because I have every video I've ever made, but it might not, almost, right? That's what I'm saying. Some of my shit, they make these modern hard drives go kaput on purpose too, right? They artificially reduce the mean time between failures to fuck you over. But more importantly, so you're buying hard drives every 2 years instead of like, I have a Seagate external 80 gigabyte hard drive that I bought in 2004 or 2005. That thing still works. It's literally the size and weight of a fucking brick. And that doesn't even include the external power supply. USB 2.0 and the motherfucker still works. But then I have hard drives that I bought 2 or 3 years ago that just stopped working, right? Or within 3 to 6 months, they're already having corruption problems. But a hard drive made over 20 years ago still works. And I'm talking banged the fuck around. External hard drive, dropped off of fucking tables and fucking everything, still works. No corruption, no nothing. The only thing with that thing is, basically I'll have to reformat it, because I had put Veracrypt on it, but then I forgot what the fucking password was. But it didn't matter because I backed up everything off it. That was on it, before I encrypted it. I don't know. Encryption is pointless. I was reading something earlier, some guy talking about password security in Deus Ex, the original. And he talks about how it's supposedly unrealistic. What's funny, though, is actually how realistic it is. And if you don't believe me, go watch lectures from, like, I don't know, DEF CON type shit, where these pen testers talk about how kind of stupid easy it is to break into shit, like physical shit, not even, digital stuff, but even digital stuff, right? Because, yeah, people choose first, it's like Deus Ex, first initial, last name, and then the password is some blatantly obvious shit. It's actually worse with modern stuff because, you see every sign up, they require capital and lowercase, and then also numbers, and then also special characters. It's like, you just made it easier to crack the password because now the cracker knows all the combinations that it can't be, right? You actually reduced the number of things they would either have to try to guess, or, how much time it would take to brute force. So it actually makes the password less secure. Anybody that knows anything about data security knows that that's stupid. But it's a false sense of security, and then, well, here goes all your data breaches. But I kind of gave up on disk encryption, just encryption in general, because for one, it slows everything down, on disks, and it's not a good idea for solid state media. I mean, they're already write limited. They have a limited number of writes. I mean, a hard disk, if the mechanisms continue to function, I mean, the data on it essentially will last forever. Or unless, you swipe it with a fucking magnet or something strong enough. But otherwise, the shit might as well last forever. On modern solid state, like flash memory or whatever, There's a limited number of rights. And there's some DEF CON shit I watched like 10 plus years ago. They were actually getting past, I think it was on Android, they were actually getting in root access, specifically by going in through blocks on the solid state memory that had been basically disabled because they were, again, the wear leveling stuff, they were getting too used up, and, they basically get revoked by the OS or the hardware actually, and that becomes their vector, right? Yeah, how's that for an attack surface? Your whole fucking SSD or whatever. Um, but so the encryption stuff, I'm not exactly a great fan of that in the first place. I trusted less with solid state. There's other vectors that make solid state encryption worthless, other than just the limited write operations. But it doesn't matter, because I've known for probably almost 10 years at this point that Veracrypt is you can basically break it instantly. Now, granted, that does require access to the system, like actually running. However, modern clusters brute forcing a Veracrypt password does not take long anyway, right? So it's unnecessary extra steps and potential risks of data loss for something that's really not helping at all. And fundamentally, for me, nobody's going to get my physical media unless I'm dead. And if I'm dead, it doesn't fucking matter. So most of my stuff that I had encrypted in the past, I took encryption off. And, yeah, that might be part of a factor of why at least one of my hard drive backups has corruption, is just, if a disk dismounts while encrypted, yeah, I don't know if that's the best scenario. And I've just had bad luck with hardware and this and that lately. But, the few media that I still have encrypted, they stay that way just because, you know, trying to decrypt them, remove the encryption, and having to worry about it dismounting for whatever reason is more of a danger than just leaving it how it is. But, when you see a game like Deus Ex and it's that hyper literal about, oh man, there's all the turret defenses and all this other stuff, and then you just walk around to the back door that nobody is watching and it's just unlocked or whatever, that's closer to reality than motherfuckers. That's not the fiction part of Deus Ex. I mean, there's actually very little in Deus Ex that's truly fictional. Essentially the exact time period, which you can tell when people showed up via Human Revolution and all that, when they start claiming Deus Ex is in the 2050s or whatever, or they say it's 2052. Nothing in the original game explicitly states what year it's set during. It's almost like Mega Man X, where it's 20XX, right? Or was it when they start doing it's Mega Man 2, actually, or Mega Man 3 or whatever. But yeah, for all the motherfuckers that want to pretend Invisible War doesn't count, no, dude, the one that doesn't count is Human Revolution. Human Revolution is not Deus Ex. Invisible War, you might love or hate it, but fundamentally, that's what Deus Ex would have looked like. That's the sequel to Deus Ex I would have expected from a team that was essentially made up of the motherfuckers who worked on the PS2 port of the original, right? Given that environment, that's what I would have expected Invisible War to turn out like. But yeah, Human Revolution, that's, it's like the, Doom 2016 to now. Everyone that says they like Doom now, those games are painkiller, right? Or Serious Sam more than they are Doom.